I suppose question I've got here is in terms of the impact, are there any government policies? I know certain cities have specific restrictions about the type of let. I mentioned short lets earlier. I don't know whether you can or can't do that in Birmingham. I know, for example, London has its limit on what you can do with Airbnb and things like that. Does Birmingham have any restriction in that sense that you know of?
Not at the moment. I mean, look, if we're being honest and we're looking at, giving good advice to investors, I can see it moving that way
Mm.
because, ultimately the more Airbnbs and the more short lets you have in the market, the less available properties there are to rent, and there's already a housing crisis in the UK. So I can see measures being increased. I think there's definitely money to be made on that kind of short let model, but I don't see it existing forever as it stands in places like Birmingham and Manchester.
Okay, got it. And you mentioned you've actually answered my next question already in terms of age distribution of the population. So it's under 25, right? The majority of.
Correct. Yeah. So I think it's 60% under 25 or 60% under 30, but it's yeah, Europe's youngest city by
And I assume
demographic.
they're all working as opposed to necessarily all students. So you're going to have a high number of people that are in employment that can afford the rents that
Correct.
right?
Yeah, so we're looking at demographic data. There's been a 26% increase in people earning over £70,000 in Birmingham.
Okay,
But
fine.
yeah,
So they can
don't get me
comfortably
wrong.
afford £2,000 a month in terms of rent on, say,
Exactly.
1,500,
Yeah.
2,000. Okay,
And then
nice.
it's a huge student population as well, over 100,000. And, a lot of these people are international students, and these are the guys that are paying upfront rents. So that's quite handy as well.
Fine. I'm gonna put you on the spot again, and a question we always get asked in terms of risks associated with Birmingham, and potentially, if you looked at it, because no property investment is never 100% perfect. There's always something. But is there anything in terms of Birmingham that you would say, if you're an investor, have a look at this. You can manage it and it can be mitigated, but that would be worth considering. Whether that's future plans for specific, I don't know, transport projects that may impact views for a long period of time or something like that.
I think the big one would be if at one of these large regeneration projects or a large project like HS2, for example, did eventually get canned, that would 100% impact the market. And with HS2, taking that as an example, it was supposed to go to Manchester, it was supposed to go to Leeds, but both of those have been canned for the time being. It's probably fair to say that HS2 would never have happened if they had known in the first place that it only would have gone to Birmingham. So
Mm.
now that growth and all of that benefit that was going to be spread between those three cities is going to be concentrated in Birmingham. That's great. If it were to get scrapped, it's very, very, very unlikely. Yes, that would impact the market.
I mean, HS2, yeah, I could talk all day about that because it's just mad, the whole thing, really. Because what's the time difference now? I think it used to only take, let's say, whatever it is, an hour and a bit to get from Birmingham to London, and it's now about 5 minutes quicker and costs multiple billions to save a few people five minutes, which
Yeah.
I find crazy. But look, it's all good that it's connecting up and it was needed. And I think that is a positive in the end, as much as it cost the government a hell of a lot of money to do. Um, but I suppose looking further ahead then, and something that often isn't discussed with or for property investors that should be, is in terms of exit strategies of property further down the line. So you buy something, I always like to say to my clients, my investors, hold it for a minimum 5 years, because otherwise there's no point really buying in the first place. So you get the growth that's sort of factored into it. But then in terms of the resale market in Birmingham and people that are looking in that secondary market, who's in that space? Is it active? What's going on there?
Yeah, it's active on two fronts, right? So you've got the owner occupiers and the local buyers. So when you look at affordability ratios, so you can look at median house prices to median workplace earnings. So
Mm.
Birmingham has a ratio of 6.3. Compare that to London, it's 12.5. So I always get this wrong, but it's twice as easy, half as hard to buy a property living in Birmingham, based on that affordability ratio. So like, the main point being is local people who live and work in Birmingham can afford these houses, can afford these apartments. So that's always good in terms of being able to sell to an owner occupier in the future. The other side to it is selling to an investor, and the good thing there is rents are rising. So JLL just released their report called the Big Six report. They look at the biggest six cities outside of London. Birmingham has the highest rental growth of 9.5%. So usually what we find on the exit markets is if you can demonstrate that the rent has been increasing year on year, for example, that the price has also increased, that's again attractive to an investor who will then take that off your hands. So you've got both those pools.
Yeah. And in terms of the infrastructure going into Birmingham, how important is it for people considering looking at things like when they're buying? Is it close to good schooling? Is it close to the right transportation? Is it, I don't know, obviously there's two big football clubs in Birmingham. I've probably missed one, big cricket ground, all this sort of stuff. Are things like that and buying around those areas important or less so? Or, I mean, what's your take on that?
So I think schools, it would probably be fair to say schools less so, because if you're living in the city centre, you're probably a young professional without a family. So that's my hypothesis there.
Mhm.
They are expanding the tram network. So something that's been incredibly successful for investors in Manchester is looking at the Metrolink and where that's been expanded. They're doing the same thing in Birmingham. So I'd definitely have a look to where metro stations are being expanded to. There's also a new £3 billion regeneration plan called the Sports Quarter, which is actually being headed up by Tom Brady, the NFL star.
Okay.
So that will definitely be something to look out for. And similar thing in Manchester, they've got their new Trafford regeneration zone with Manchester United. So there are definitely local micro factors to look out for. Definitely.
Yeah. And I suppose then moving on in terms of the developments that you have available, just to sort of close it out and in terms of what's still in the market and what people are looking at, can you sort of list off a couple of things that you've got in terms of price points and what people are looking at?
Yeah, definitely. So we've got a scheme completing in December called Sapphire Court. That's pretty much in the heart of Digbeth. So that was the kind of main regeneration zone within the city centre.
Mhm.
It's, for example, next to a new metro station. It's next to a £400 million redevelopment owned by Moda, which is one of the biggest private renting investment companies in the UK. So really good investment potential there. We've then got something a lot more, I'd say a lot more central and a lot more prime, which is called Fountain Court, developed by Elevate Property Group, um, who are definitely, one of the, if not the best developer in Birmingham at the moment, who are really building to a spec which is just incredibly, incredibly high. And that's very central next to the kind of traditional financial district. Starting price in there is about 257,000 pounds for a one bed.
Okay. So yeah, under that £300,000 mark. So, people in Asia or overseas, if they're putting down 25%, then once you factored in all costs, actually did a piece fairly recently, you're probably looking at between about realistically 90 to £120,000 all in cost to buy something at 300 grand. And that was off sort of data I put once you factored in stamp duties, legal fees, furnishings, all that sort of stuff. Actually, that's a good question. Do you recommend people furnish apartments or do you have them unfurnished?
Two arguments. I know we want to wrap this up. So there's an argument to say if you furnish it, it's going to rent a lot quicker and it's going to rent for
Mm.
slightly higher amount. That's fair and that's accurate. There's an argument to say if you don't furnish it, a tenant's obviously going to move their own furniture in, then they're a bit more invested into that flat and they'll probably stay longer. It's just a bit of a hassle. It's a bit of an effort to keep on moving furniture each year.
Yeah.
Um, so the upfront cost of a furniture pack for a one bed apartment is probably about £4,000 all in.
And
So
I'm
yeah.
sure you mentioned earlier in terms of rental increases year on year. I know we touched on the Savills report in terms of growth. Do you know roughly what they were from the rental side
Yeah. So from the latest JLL report, it says 9.5%
year on
over the
year?
last. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the JLL Big Six report 2024 winter, 2024, 2025 winter report.
And do you think that's going to continue at that sort of level?
No, probably not, to be honest. I think it'll definitely be far outpacing the national average.
Yeah.
At the moment, Birmingham consistently, when you look at delivery rates of housing in the city centre, it's about 4,000 units per year, but there's an
Yeah.
annual need each year of 7,500. So as long as you have that in balance, rents will continue to rise.
It's like the whole of the UK, really. The 1.5 million target is a long,
Yeah.
long, long way off.
No,
But no, interesting stuff. I really appreciate that time and thank you for that. Without wanting to get sort of uh, bore people too much about the intricacies of Birmingham. But no, useful to get your takeaway. I'll link in Henry's details as well onto this. So if anyone wants to reach out to either one of us, get in contact and we can talk you through that market in a bit more detail. But Henry, appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And we'll speak soon.
okay. Cheers, Ludo.